Welcome to Ideas, a time of conversation about all things board games. Community is built on conversations, and games are built on ideas.
Hey, my name is Brent here on Cloudy with the Chance of Meeples, and today is the start of a new month. Well, not technically the start of a new month, but the first Monday of a brand new month, and that means we are going to be doing some brand new ideas. A time in which we bring on designers, illustrators, publishers in the board gaming hobby and talk about their work and how they get their ideas from here to the board games that we love to play. And I feel that community is built on conversation, just like games are built on ideas. So today we have none other than Jamey Stegmaier of Stonemaier Games. And I would say you are like, I said, designer and publisher. You're kind of like, you're all those things because you design games and yet you are the president of your own game company, right?
I am. Yeah. For a long time, I was the only full-time employee at my company. Now we have a few other people working with me. But yeah.
How many people do you have?
Currently, I have, let's see, Joe, Alex, and Dave are my full-time coworkers. And then Alan and Susanna are part-time coworkers. And there are a lot of other people that have an impact on the company. You mentioned artists there. We have a great team of artists, graphic designers, people all over the world, play testers, proofreaders. A lot of people contribute to our games. Yeah.
Fantastic. And you've been, well, I just want to say thank you and welcome to the program. But what's your journey into the board gaming hobby? I love talking to designers and people in the hobby, and what got you into this great hobby that we share?
Yeah, I have kind of two parts of that. Part of it is, as a kid, my parents introduced me to games very young. So I was playing games like classic American games like Monopoly, but also Millbourne, Scotland Yard, Key to the Kingdom. I got into Magic as a teenager, and then in college I played a lot of Mario Kart off the tabletop, played a lot of Hearts on the tabletop with friends, and then I got into hosting like a weekly poker night for a few years after college, and then eventually that merged into Catan, and then Agricola, and then Stone Age, and then I was kind of off to the races in terms of games after that. What about you? Did you play games as a kid as well and then return to it as an adult?
I did. Yeah, I did. Yeah. Growing up, I played Risk. We would have a bunch of Risk parties, and I'd have like 3 games going on in my house in different rooms, and we'd do that. I remember playing Monopoly, and so I kind of, similar to you, kind of played these, American mass market board games, and then I kind of got out of it for a number of years. Kind of about in 2015, I started getting back into it. And I'll say I'm more, if you look at the games behind me, I'm more of a like family-ish weight gamer. That's what I enjoy, kind of that 30 to 60 minutes. I got somewhat of a short attention span, so longer games typically. I know there is Everdell on here, which some people would say that's a long game, but that's kind of my journey into the board gaming hobby. Did growing up, my dad had a copy of Millbourne's. I don't really think I ever played that properly. Actually, I can say confidently that I never played that properly. But yeah, growing up, probably Risk would have been kind of my favorite. Would you have had a favorite that you played with your folks?
Risk is certainly up there. Like Risk is one that I played quite a bit. And as an adult, I've enjoyed the Risk Legacy version of it. And then Scotland Yard, I would say, is the game that I played as a kid that still holds up as an adult. Like I still have my childhood copy on my shelf, and I still pull it out from time to time and still play it. And I did mention chess. Chess is out there too,
right?
And there are a few others. I think Blockus is on my shelf somewhere. That's probably around 20 years old at this point.
Now that you say that, I did get into Blockus pretty heavily. Like I played that a lot. I brought a copy to work, and we play it like at lunches and break time and stuff like that. And yeah, I played a lot of Blockus. So what are you playing? What are you playing now?
Well, I just actually, we're talking after I spent the last 4 days at a convention here in St. Louis called Geekway to the West. And so I played a lot of games over the last few days, including a bunch that were new to me. Here, I actually just printed out, so I'm preparing to do videos for them. So I printed a bunch of things. I played Broken and Beautiful. I'll just rattle off a few here. Played Honga. So I played some new games, some older games.
Is Honga a Haba game?
Honga is a Haba game. Yeah.
The little like caveman with the leopard or whatever.
Yeah.
I haven't played it. I've seen it. But okay, go ahead.
I think it would fit well in your collection here.
Mhm.
Family friendly. I think we played it in about 45 minutes, and it has a
Nice.
really clever mechanism that I think adults would enjoy, but kids. There was a kid at the table. I was playing with a father and
Okay.
a son. He was having a good time with it.
Right
I
on.
see trekking through history on your shelf, I believe, and I played that for the first time. Yep,
What do you think of it?
I really enjoyed it. It was my first trekking game. I think
Okay.
maybe there are 3 of them at this point,
Yep.
and I had a good time. It was kind of filled again that niche that you enjoy. The 30 to 60
That was
minute.
my favorite game of 2022.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, like I
Yeah.
just love the whole puzzly aspect of, how long do you want to make your trek versus,
Mhm.
filling in your itinerary every month. And then when you get those time warp cards to kind of break the rules. And
Yeah.
yeah, Underdog Games did an absolute slam dunk, in my opinion, on trekking through history. And I would love to see more trekking cards.
Uh-huh.
I'm sure probably everybody would say the same thing. I don't know if it'll
Yeah,
ever happen, but yeah. So
I
um
agree.
right on.
It's a good, yeah.
Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Anyway, lots of games there that I played. There's some heavier games, some lighter games. One little fun lighter game that we played that was new to me is a game called Challengers, which I had a lot of fun with that one.
Okay.
But yeah, anyway, lots of games played over the last few days.
Right
Yeah.
on. Yeah, I've been playing well, Everdell's my favorite game, so I've been playing always play Everdell.
I can see a lot of Everdell on your shelf. Do you play with all the expansions up there? Or?
Yeah, I don't do like the giant one. I
Uh,
know some people do, and I know like they advise you in the rules to not to do that, to not add everything.
yeah.
Which I don't. It's just a little bit too much for me.
Yeah.
But no, we got that in 2020 to be just before the pandemic.
Nice.
And we did like 100 plays that year, so that's
Oh,
kind of
wow.
like a near and dear game to my heart with my wife and I.
That's
And
awesome.
so, but let's talk about some of your game designs. So
Yeah.
am I correct, 10 years ago your first one came out?
10, what
2013?
are we at? 2023? Yes. So right around this time, actually, Viticulture, which I designed and crowdfunded in 2012,
Mhm.
it was probably shipping to backers around this time. Yeah, 10 years
So
ago, and then to retailers. Yeah.
so when did you start viticulture? It's obviously, a well renowned game, and I don't know if it makes you feel like, wow, 10 years, like a lot has happened in the last 10 years. But it's kind of like your first baby. um
Yeah.
how did that one come to play?
I was fascinated by 2 things. One, I loved designing games as a kid,
Mhm.
and I hadn't done it all that much as an adult. I dabbled a little bit here and there. But I started to see, I was also fascinated by Kickstarter.
Mhm.
My company has moved away from Kickstarter since then, but at the time I was fascinated by Kickstarter, this idea that I could uh, try to create something that other people might connect with, and I could connect directly with those people who are connecting with it.
Mhm.
Usually, when you buy a product, you don't connect directly necessarily with the person who's creating it. I thought that was really cool. So I started to see board game projects show up on Kickstarter,
Mhm.
and I thought, this is a good opportunity for me to combine my love of game design with my curiosity for running a Kickstarter campaign.
Right.
Yeah.
And now let's move forward 10 years. You said your
Yeah.
company moved away from Kickstarter. And do you
Yeah.
think, and maybe this is just speculation or whatever, but there's so much coming out on Kickstarter. Do
Yeah.
you feel as a publisher that there's going to be a breaking point for the hobby, in the sense of there's so many companies coming up and popping up, and it's a good way to build a foundation to company in a company. But
Yeah.
if there's so much, how long till a consumer can say, I cannot back anymore? Like, what does that look like? Or how do you balance that? I guess like you guys don't do it, but you did in the past. And
Yeah.
so where do you think this is going to go with the whole Kickstarter?
There certainly is a deluge of campaigns these days.
Mhm.
And I think one impact that it's had is that it's harder to stand out. So if you launch a campaign, so many Kickstarter campaigns are launched on Tuesdays now. So I often see dozens of projects launched on a single day.
Right.
And when that happens, I think, at least for me, I'm a gamer, I back things. If I see 10 games that look pretty cool launch on the same day, even if I am curious about all of them, I'm probably only going to back one of
Wow.
them.
Mhm.
And so I have to be a lot more selective now. And that puts a lot of pressure on not just on the consumer, but also on the creator to make it really stand out, which I think that pressure is good. If you're going to create something, really make it stand out. I think it's less likely now that projects that don't stand out will succeed, even if there's a good game somewhere in there. If you haven't done your job on the art or good pricing on the campaign, all that stuff. Any reason for someone to say no, they might just say no now as a backer. What's your experience? Do you back many projects?
You know what? Obviously I backed. I haven't backed as many as most people. To be totally honest, I think I've maybe backed 5.
Okay. Yeah.
I've backed 5. I'm also at the point in my life where I have younger kids, so raising a family is tough in this day and age, like inflation and this and that. You just add all the things up like that,
Right.
and so yeah, it's sometimes a challenge because also companies say Kickstarter exclusive, but then sometimes they don't end up being Kickstarter exclusive. You know what I mean? So it's a tough line as a consumer to be like, should I wait? Should I not wait? And then the whole of the fear of missing out and things like that. So like, when did you guys step out of the Kickstarter realm?
Yeah, so Scythe was on Kickstarter in 2015, and kind of during and after the fulfillment process for Scythe, the following summer, I kind of realized a few things that made me want to move away from Kickstarter, and really for a while I moved away from selling directly to consumers at all, which was kind of ironic given that was the reason I got into it in the first place. But we went back to that. So the next thing that came out after that was Charterstone, and Charterstone just sold directly to distributors and retailers for quite a while. And then we went back to finding a way that we could sell games on a web store directly to people who wanted to buy them in that way, as well as through distributors and retailers. But we still didn't go back to crowdfunding. We were kind of done with it at that point.
And I've seen other companies do the same thing. And like I said at the beginning, it's great. Like I'm not bashing Kickstarter by any stretch of imagination. I'm just saying, for me personally, there's just so many. Like you said, there's like a dozen, like every week, like every Tuesday, there's 10 to 12, and they all look amazing. And then it's like, man, games nowadays in 2023, they have to be like, that bar is so high.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Or people who are watching the video, they can see your shelf behind you, and all these games, you can see how polished these games are, even not just in terms of gameplay. I know from looking at a lot of these games, they have very polished gameplay, but they look fantastic. So if you have even the side of your box doesn't look great, that's another reason to pass it up and find a game that does look great on the shelf or on Kickstarter. Yeah.
And so how do you you moved away from Kickstarter, but how do you do that? How do you know when a game is like done? Because there is so much competition. And again, you're not in the realm of the Kickstarter competition, but at the same time, you're still in a competition to fill one of these Calyx cubes of people all over the world.
Yeah.
And so how do you do that as a designer? Be like, guys, maybe 5 years ago, this would have been a slam dunk, but now it just doesn't measure up because of what's out there.
Yeah. That is a great question that I ask throughout the development process of any game. So I am a designer at Stonemaier Games, but I also, for the games that I design and the games that we sign from other designers, like Wingspan on your shelf behind you, I work as a developer. I work a lot with the designer. I also coordinate all the blind playtesting to make sure the game is as balanced and as intuitive and fun as possible. And I am also the project manager. So I'm working with the artist and the graphic designer to make sure everything comes together as one cohesive whole. And along every step along that path, I am asking that question. Is this good enough, or is this great? And I'm looking for that moment where it's great, not just from my perspective, but also from everyone else who's looking at it. Are they seeing something that looks great, that's really exciting to them, that they that they would buy if they were in the position to do so?
That brings me kind of to my next question. Do you think Jamey Stegmaier is better at game design or better at game development?
Well, what do you think? You played Wingspan and Scythe, 2 very different games, but one shows my development chops, the other shows my design chops.
You know what? I played Scythe a number of years ago. So I enjoyed having the whole, like, you got your board and you have to pick an action, but then you can't pick the same action. I like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And again, Scythe is maybe a little bit heavier than, and not to say it's a bad game. It's an amazing game. I like it. It's great. Right. I've only played it once, so I could barely say like my official thought on the game. Right. Wingspan, I enjoy. I like it a lot. 2020 got wingspan, and I turned into, a bird watching guy. I'm looking out at my bird feeder right now, and this morning we had like this giant, I don't even know what kind of bird it was. And so I just am really captivated by by the birds and stuff like that. And so I don't know. I just didn't know what. maybe it's not a fair question for you, but like, sometimes we feel like, I'm better at this than I'm better at that. I'm a better cook than I'm a better baker. Like for me personally. But what do you enjoy?
I think the way that I might answer that, the way, I might talk about it the way that I enjoy it, because I think depends on the project how well I did it as a designer or a developer. But for me, I found that I really enjoy, in all aspects of my job, but especially this, I enjoy variety. I enjoy a little bit of both. I think my job I'd get a little burnt out from my job if I was only designing, or if I was only doing business stuff for the company, or only creating content, just as I would get burnt out if I was only doing development. But I love, like, one of my favorite structure for any given day is if I get some time, a few hours every afternoon, on an afternoon, to spend developing someone else's game that we're working with, and then a few hours in the evening to work on my own design. If I get the mix of those two things, I've had a great day.
So are you currently designing a game? Can you tell me? Would you tell me?
Oh yeah. I'm typically always designing 2 games, and that way I can bounce back and forth. I'm getting, I usually like to focus on the one that I'm the most excited about at that moment. I think that's when I do my best work, when I'm really driven to work on a certain game. And that doesn't always happen, because I'll work really hard on one game and then I'll be like, I need to take a mental break. I need to process some of these things I'm going through and not work so hard on it for now. And that way, if I have another project going on, I can switch over to that other project for a little bit and then go back and forth. So right now I'm working on 2 games. One is a big open world game that I've been working on for a number of years, and one is a relatively new project that I just started really a few weeks ago, but it's coming together pretty well.
Right on. So you say you've been working on this for a couple of years. So how does this work out? I was reading, I don't know what game it was. They were like, I've been working on this. It was a Kickstarter, ironically. And it's coming out maybe in like whatever. I don't know when it is. It's been backed, and you know what I mean? They're starting to fulfill it. And like, this is like, I've been working on this for 6 years, like he started it, or this designer or whatever company started 6 years. How do you keep something relevant 6 years from now? You know what I mean? That would be like you coming up with Dominion, whatever. Like, hey, I'm doing a deck building game, and all of a sudden Dominion comes out, and you only get yours like 3 years later, and be like, I'm a little late to the party on this one here. So you've been designing this a couple years. How do you, and you can't guarantee this, but like when it comes out or when you publish it in a year, 2 years from now, that is still fresh and relevant?
Well, I think the one, I wouldn't call it an advantage, because I would have loved if I'd completed this game quite some time ago. It just got bigger and bigger and bigger. But the one thing that's helped me is that I play a lot of games and I study a lot of games. I watch a lot of content about games. Like your channel. I like listening to designers talk about their designs. That's something that doesn't happen all that often, but I love to see that when it happens. And so during this design process for this particular game, I am constantly studying other games and learning from them and applying those lessons to the game that I'm designing. So, and many of those games are newer games. So like Sleeping Gods came out during the design process for my big open world game. Sleeping Gods is a big open world game. Mine is very different than it, but it is a big open world game. So I got to play that game, learn from it, and apply those lessons to my game. So I think that's one way to keep it fresh. If I went into a cave for 6 years and didn't have, like, a vacuum and didn't have any exposure to anything outside, you're totally right. I would come out of that cave with something that would be probably completely irrelevant at that point.
You talked about you watch content and you play other games and stuff like that. And something I really love about what you put on online is you take other games and you're like, this is what I love about those games. And we're kind of in that and I'm the consumer, you're the publisher, but like there has to be some sort of like competition between publishers of like, this is our big game and this is our big game. And so often in the real world, companies don't, you see it in politics. I'm not going to talk about politics, but like smearing other companies. Well, they didn't do this well and they didn't do this well, but you're on the other side of it and you're like, you know what? I love the game, Honey Buzz, because it does this and this and this. And I love the game, Ishtar. I'm just looking at games behind my shelf. I don't know if you played either of those games.
Oh yeah,
But you know what I mean? And you just want to celebrate just creativity. Am I wrong in saying that?
that is a perfect way of saying it. Yes, I do just want to celebrate creativity, and also I hope my videos give people give other designers some ideas. They see me talking about a mechanism that I think is really cool. That might help them process a mechanism that they're working on. And another part of that too, I'm glad you mentioned Honeybuzz for this. I am good friends with the designer of Honeybuzz. We got into disc golf together during the pandemic. We now play games together. We play disc golf together, and someday I might even publish a game from him. And if I had posted a Honeybuzz video years ago about how much I hated Honeybuzz, or like all the things that I didn't like about Honeybuzz, or why you shouldn't play Honeybuzz, that relationship, that friendship, that future professional relationship may never happen. Like everyone that I talk about, they're peers. I respect them. I respect the time they put into the games. And I don't like every game that I talk about, but I try to focus on the positive. There's something that I like about every game I play, and I'd rather focus on that. So, and as not a reviewer, as just someone who's sharing my thoughts from the game design perspective.
Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's really cool, because there is stuff like every game, like we typically go to like, you know, a mass market store and we see the Monopoly, or we see all these things. We're like, wow, just like us snobs, let's just say that sometimes we have the attitude in the board gaming hobby that, oh, that's just straight trash, right? But then, you know, people still are invested in that, and all the games on the shelves behind me and you as a designer, Scythe, Viticulture, you know, Rising Red, even though it didn't maybe get as much buzz and love as maybe you'd hope, but like, you know, there is a lot of emotional ties to these games. No?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Any game. Yeah. Absolutely. I'm glad you said that, because I know how hard designers work on these games. They put a lot of passion, and the publishers too. They put a lot of resources and time and effort into them. Not every game is going to resonate with every person. There's some games that I think just aren't as good as other games, but still a lot of time and love and resources were put into them, and I respect that.
So do you have a favorite game of your designs? Whether it because it was in that time of space, you know, you just pushed through something, all of a sudden one day something clicked, and you're like, that's the spark that I needed, because now I can do XYZ, or something that, like, do you have a favorite game and why?
It is really hard to pick from the games that we published. Like I'm really proud of the games designed by other people that I had a hand in developing. Not so much focusing on my side of it, but I'm really proud of what we were able to put forth for those designers that put so much time and effort into those games. And for my designs, you know, I spent a lot of time. I spent a lot of time and effort into my designs, and so I'm hoping they bring joy to people. It's hard. It's really hard for me to answer. Generally, my thought is, if I'm playing a game with you, if we got to sit down and play a game, my favorite game to play with you at that moment of the games that I designed is the one that you're most excited to play. Yeah, because I don't spend time on things that I don't love, and so I love all the things that we publish.
Right. I feel that I'm kind of similar in that sense. Like, some of my favorite games are not ones I win, because, you know, my winning percentage in playing games is probably like, if I was a professional sports player, I'd be in like #1 pick like every year continually, right? Like, just because we love something doesn't mean we have to be good at something.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so I just love when I have game nights sitting around with just friends or family or my kids, and just creating those memories, creating those like experiences. And maybe that's such a millennial mindset of like experiences over anything else. I don't know. But I don't know. Yeah, there's just something about that time spent with other people and that interaction that I love. So moving forward, you have a brand new title in the Scythe universe. Tell me a little bit more about that one.
Yeah, the game, the other game that I was designing while working on my big open world game is called Expeditions. It's a sequel to Scythe. And so I got to, again, work with the world builder and artist Jakub Rosalski to put this game together that is a mechanical and a thematic sequel to Scythe. So it takes place in the same world as Scythe, a few years after the events of Scythe took place. And then mechanically, it is a completely different game, but I tried to make pretty much everything you do feel like what you're doing in Scythe. Like you mentioned earlier, that in Scythe you have to take a different like choose a different section of your player map every time you take a turn.
Right.
And in expeditions, you shift around this little token on your mech, and that token covers up one of 3 actions that you can't do, and it reveals 2 other actions that you do in any order. And so you're constantly shifting around that token, selecting between move, gather, and play to decide 2 actions that you can do, and you have to shift that token every turn. So took that concept from Scythe and ported it into expeditions.
Right on. When did you start designing that one?
That one, so yeah, I started working on it during the pandemic. I don't know what it was about early pandemic, but I was like, this is because I was kind of done with the world of Scythe. I've stopped making Scythe content. I've said, I'm not making any more Scythe content. It's complete. And something about it, I just had an idea. I reached out to Jakob to see if he would be interested in creating a sequel to Scythe, and he threw out some ideas. And it took me around 3 years to design. I thought it would be a fairly easy design because I know Scythe so well, but I realized that it was rather difficult to take a game that a lot of people enjoy. A lot of people are very passionate about Scythe, to try to make a sequel to that isn't the same thing as Scythe, but is still very appealing to those people and does something different than other games that are already out there on the marketplace. And it came out around the same time as Dune Imperium and Lost Ruins of Arnak. Lost Ruins of Arnak in particular is an exploration game with a deck building element or a hand management element and a worker placement element, all mechanisms that are in expeditions. And so it was kind of a fun challenge to make a game that is different than a very highly acclaimed game that came out while I was designing it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that will be available at Gen Con for people to pick up?
Gen Con, yes. So we share a booth with a company called Meeples Source, and we have some copies reserved for that booth at Gen Con. People can also pre-order it if they want, and we'll be shipping it in July, a little bit before Gen Con.
Okay.
And we've sold out of the first wave of the Metal Mech version of the game, but we have more of them coming for September for the retail release.
Right on.
Yeah. Are you going to Gen Con? Have you ever been?
I have not been to Gen Con. Would I love to go to Gen Con? Absolutely. This year they're doing a 5-year anniversary tournament of Everdell. So I'm
cool.
Man.
Yeah.
Just dreaming. I don't think I'll be there. Unless something crazy happens. But I would love to be there. My wife and I would love to be there for that. But no. The answer right now is no.
Okay.
But we'll see. So as we wrap up, a game that we talked about a little bit, Wingspan. Is there is more content, but where's that? What's the timeline ish? Whatever you are willing or wanting to share. Obviously, the Asia expansion / standalone game came out. What's next?
We have 2 little things that are coming out in the Wingspan world. One is coming up very soon. We have vision-friendly versions of the bird cards that we're going to be releasing. It's something people have asked about for a while. Not everybody. I think a lot of people don't have a problem with the cards, but there's a lot of text in the cards, a lot of little icons that you need to read. And I've heard that some people struggle with that. And that's on us. That's on our responsibility to make cards vision-friendly. And we've kind of made these cards really vision-friendly to make up for how they're not all that vision friendly now. And then next up, we did a fan art challenge where we invited people who love Wingspan to create an illustration of a bird that's already in the game. So this isn't, neither of these things are new content. They're just the cards presented in new ways that might make the game more accessible or more colorful, more exciting for people on the table. So we have that will come out either late next year or early in 2024. And then at some point, I'm hoping in 2024, we will have the next expansion. I think every other year we'll do a new continent. I can't reveal what the continent is yet. But why don't you tell me which continent you're hoping for, and maybe one bird that isn't in Wingspan that you're hoping to see?
Well, if I'm wrong, there's I'd love to see kiwi.
We have kiwi.
Oh no, never mind. That's the ocean.
That's an ocean.
No,
so we haven't done Antarctica, we haven't done Africa, and we haven't done South America. Yeah.
Right. To be totally honest, I'm not that big. I don't know that many birds. So I have one of 3 guesses. I would be really excited to see Antarctica. Obviously like penguins, but besides that, I don't know many other living creatures. I'm so removed from like grade 4 social studies, although I shouldn't because my my son's in grade 4. But I should be more well versed in my animal kingdom. Let's just say that. But I'm excited. I actually don't have Oceania or the Asian expansion yet. I just have the European bird.
The Europeans,
so, yeah, the European birds, which I haven't got to the table as much because, again, we talked about it like all the time. Games are coming out, and so it's a challenge to keep getting games to the table because there's just so many. Which it just speaks so highly to this fantastic hobby that we share.
Right? That's true. Yeah, it really is. It's a compliment of all the designers out there and the publishers who create these amazing games. It is a golden age of gaming.
It really is.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, thanks so much for taking the time. This has been really cool, and I just love having conversation and just hearing your journey into this hobby and hearing a little insight on, what publishers go through and the challenges you guys go through to make sure that game is absolutely like top notch and stuff like that. So if you want to know more about your work, where can people find you?
The hub for everything is StonemaierGames.com. So there you can find my Instagram where I talk a lot about other people's games, my YouTube channel where I talk about other people's games. And then on Stonemaier Games, I talk about our games and I talk about kind of business stuff. If people want to get behind the business of making board games, there's a lot there. Yeah. So
StonemaierGames.com. I'll put a link to the description, in the description of this video. There we go. It's always a mouthful.
Awesome.
And sometimes I just got to slow down before I start talking. But right on. Thanks again so much for joining us. StonemaierGames.com. Check out Jamey and his work. We're on Facebook, Cloudy with a Chance of Meeples. And I firmly believe that community is built on conversation, just like games are built on ideas. So until next time, grab your umbrella. The forecast is cloudy with a chance of meeples.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and remember to grab your umbrella because the forecast is cloudy with a chance of meeples.